Thank you for listening to The Lawyer's Daughter. This is Jen Carroll.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the podcast. It is September 15th. Today's the day you pay estimated taxes. It's actually tomorrow since today's Sunday. Tomorrow's the first business day. Estimated taxes are due. That's always something for me. And I'm coming to you live with the follow-up on the agencies and what they do for us that you may not expect. So look at me, all high tech. If you don't know this, I'm also doing a YouTube video, which is going to give you nothing more unless you're just into watching video and want to see a person with who needs a haircut. That's the video. But otherwise, it's the regular old podcast. And here we are. We're talking about what our federal agencies do for us and how they help protect our democracy and take care of us. So you can't tell that I'm looking at a million screens, but I am. And I'm going to start. I decided that the coolest way to show what the federal agencies do for us is to show it in the context of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So if you don't know Maslow, it is all about helping us, or helping. It's a simple way to understand how we interact with the world. There's lots of feedback on it and all of that. The people have said it's oversimplified. I don't care. I need something simple right now. I need a simple model to be able to show you what this means and how this hierarchy of needs helps us understand the way humans present themselves in the world based on what's happening to them. So this is really important. So this is going to talk about everything from safe drinking water to supporting our schools, to the government being behind the scenes and making sure that we're living safe, healthy, productive lives. That's a lot how Kamala talks, and it's really important because that's a role of a government. I don't care how many people think that we're supposed to be managing every penny like a business. It's not the same. Yes, we have to have responsible spending in government, but the government is supposed to spend tax dollars on helping us live better lives. So when we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you need to know that it's a theory that explains what people need to live well. And it starts with basics like food and water, and then moves up to things like safety, friendships, and then eventually this thing called self-actualization. And self-actualization is really about you reaching your full potential, doing things like creating, learning, finding your purpose in life. While Maslow's theory isn't perfect, it can help us see how the government helps with everything from our basic needs to even reaching our personal goals. I didn't even realize that our government helps us in the highest pursuit of self-actualization. So, as you know, and I've said many times, democracy is built to serve the common good. It's fundamentally about serving us, and the common good is tied to the Constitution. Our founding fathers wrote about promoting the general welfare in the preamble of the Constitution. The preamble is like the part at the beginning, right? They wrote about it there. And what they were going for is that they said it's the government's responsibility to enact policies that benefit everyone, ensuring access to resources, protections of rights, and public service that support health and safety of society. It's important. Democracy works best when it looks out for everyone, not just individuals. And that's why government services are so essential for so many families. This is why we live in a society. This is why America is the greatest, right? This is the stuff we believe in. It's given the ethos to our personal set of ideals and what we believe in and how we're moving in the world. So these are really important concepts. And what we want to do is have a society that supports. This is if you're racist, you probably shouldn't be listening. If you don't support living in a society where everyone has a fair chance at equality and prosperity and the pursuit of happiness, fair. They have access, guys. And fairness isn't about, that's not fair. It means, given my circumstances, do I have the same fair shot as someone else giving their circumstances? And the best one to say is like, do you have fair, if somebody's 6 foot tall and I'm 5'2", is it fair that they can touch the top of the window? No. But is there a way to allow me to touch the top of the window that wouldn't in any way take away from them? Yeah, give me a stool. There you go. There you go. That's how simple it is. All right, people have done that a lot better, but let's start by looking at level 1 and those physiological needs, because the government's there. This is the basic physiological needs we have. This is the level where I tell you, if people are struggling here, when I say you want to make humans feral, F with them at this level. If people can't have access to good breathing. Swear to God, they're sick, they're struggling, they're in a polluted area. They don't have access to food, water, shelter, clothing, and sleep. Humans will become feral like anybody else. You deprive them of the basics they need to stay alive, they're going to be feral. And what I mean is they will not give any craps about society's norms, the rules, or the laws because they're not operating on that level right now. They're operating on the pure survival level. And anytime we come in and cruelly cut people off from services, food, safety, health, security, housing, then we can expect that people are going to go crazy and they're going to do bad things. So if you want to look at criminality, this is a big vector to go in. There's other reasons for criminality. I'm not an idiot. I get it. Or maybe I am an idiot. But my point is, I know there's not a simple answer to anything, but this is absolutely an answer for a lot of why desperate people do desperate things. And this is why you see people helping each other out in grocery stores and stuff, because nobody should have to go through this. This is just not, it's this suffering. It's human suffering. So here's how the government helps. These are 7 ways the government will help you at this fundamental level. And if you aren't taking advantage of this, you should look into it. There's government programs. And sometimes when you're frantic at this level, you can't even think about government. Sorry, I keep talking about SVU, but it always cracks me up on SVU when they're like, there's services. And I'm thinking that I don't want to talk about service. I don't want to go negotiate some bureaucracy to go get what I need. So we need to make sure this is accessible and easy. A lot of people do this. The Republicans would really like the churches to do this work, but we know what we've seen from our churches. They've become, a lot of them, not all of them at all, many have become racist pillars of horribleness. So I'm not going to count on the churches. I want to count on our government. It's an appropriate role for our government to help people. So here they go. The USDA has the SNAP program to subsidize groceries. So if you're in trouble, go get on SNAP. It's a little bit of a pain in the ass, but it's worth it. It can monitor your school's lunch program. They make sure that the school lunches, that what the kids are getting at school are healthy. They may not be perfect, but they're decent, and they're looking at protein sources and they're looking at vitamin sources. So that is done through the National School Lunch Program. It keeps our water clean. We have to have clean drinking water. Some people are drinking out of rivers and streams because they don't have a house. So we got to have the clean water, and that's from the EPA. And then it provides emergency housing for families in crisis. I actually didn't know that we had a federal program for this, but HUD and the Continuum of Care program both help homeless people. And so I'm sure that they're overwhelmed, but at the same time, if you're helping someone out, go to HUD and take a look. There might be help there. In fact, it's interesting. I think the Section 8 housing is part of the federal too. And I have a friend who is a female over 60 who needed to find some kind of housing, but she's priced out in the Bay Area, priced out. Luckily, because she's over 55, she's able to qualify for some Section 8 senior care housing. So that's another place to look if you have seniors. Section 8, something to look for. That we need to make sure our food is safe. So we've talked about Boar's Head deli products. You can just keep going. There's tons of them. One of the things that's bad about our food production right now, and we need the Food and Drug Administration, is here's who makes sure our food is safe, is that one of the things that's happened in food production, and we talked yesterday a little bit about supply chain, is that they take all the chickens and process that meat together. So if you have 1 or 5 or 7 bad chickens, they're in the whole mess. Like, it's cross-contaminated. Those are some of the things that the Food and Drug Administration manages to make sure that our food meets safety standards, so that kind of contamination doesn't happen. I'm sorry I made you think about that, but it is kind of gross. And then it provides the government, the federal government provides this is different from your state. Your state may have other programs. That's really important. But this is from the federal government, where we pay our taxes to the IRS versus franchise. In California, it's the Franchise Tax Board. It's not the state taxes. This is all going for federal taxes. It provides affordable health care through the Department of Health and Human Services, so low-income families can get medical services. 83 million people are enrolled in Medicaid. 83 million. We got a problem, folks. But guess what? These folks at the bottom of this pyramid can get help. And then, of course, for all of us, the EPA monitors air quality. So we take this for granted, but the air quality has improved 77% between 1980 and 2019. That means most of you don't even know how bad it used to be, and it used to be bad. So that's how they help with your psychological needs. The next level on Maslow's hierarchy is around safety needs. So this is now your belly's full and you've had it and you've been able to sleep and maybe you're warm and you are protected from danger. So you're right there. But the next level up is being protected from physical harm, financial insecurity, and health threats. So this includes job stability, health coverage, and safety from natural and man-made disasters. So basically your security needs, do I have a place where I can keep my stuff? Here's how the federal government kicks in at this safety level. It provides job training programs through the Department of Labor's Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, and it has served over 1 million job seekers so far. I mean, that was as of 2021. So, it served very, very many more. So job training, it protects you from cyber attacks. This is a big deal because especially if you don't have insurance, and insurance is a higher level Maslow thing. If you think about it, insurance is up there. You have to have income. You have to have stuff to protect. So if you don't have insurance, protecting you from cyber attacks is really important, because the thing is, most of us as consumers can be hit by cyber attacks. That doesn't have discretion. That'll hit anybody. So I'm really glad that they're looking out for cyber attacks. Insures our air travel through the Federal Aviation Administration. So you might take for granted that you can hop on a plane, but they're out there making sure that 16 million flights are running safely in a year. It tracks and responds to earthquakes. You may not realize the USGS Geological Survey, is out there managing seismic activity, and ideally we're moving to a place where they're going to let us know if it's really, really bad. So you can imagine, you want to know you're going to be safe and secure, being able to know that even if we know in California there's always an imminent earthquake. It's just the nature of how we live out here. These faults be faulting. So it's good to know that there's someone paying attention to that. The U.S. Geological Survey. It also helps us know where to drill, where to do things. I mean, they can tell us what's safe and what's not safe if you're considering any kind of geologic event activity. I don't do a lot of geologic activities. It helps clean up environmental disasters. The EPA has that cleans up environmental disasters. The EPA, after oil spills, toxic waste incidents, protecting public health and the environment. In 2020, the EPA responded to 29 major environmental disasters. 29. That's the EPA. That's not FEMA. This is the EPA. It's an environmental disaster. It's like when a train goes off the tracks or an oil rig blows up or something like that. That's an environmental disaster. So it's not FEMA. It's a big deal. It also safeguards your finances, and you have to have finances to know it safeguards your finances. But hopefully, ideally, even with your 401k, you have money invested somewhere. This is just as you start to make money. I encourage everybody to save for your retirement. Please do. And the stock market's fun, but only if you know what you're doing. But your money is protected in a bank, not in crypto, but in a bank by the FDIC. That's the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. And that's why you want to make sure your money is always in an FDIC bank, not in crypto. I cannot promise you any safety in crypto. Do you know that we also regulate medications so that you are not killed by medicine? There's always a rule in our house. There was drugs and medicines. Even though you might take your medicines like drugs and your drugs like medicines, we made sure that one was seen as being pharmaceuticals and one was being seen as alternative. Anyway, in this house, we do use drugs instead of pharmaceuticals at times. So there you have it. But that's what you've got the FDA out there making sure that medications are safe and effective before they're being released into the market. So those are what's happening at the safety and security level. The next level up is the nice one. It's the love and belonging level. So imagine you're secure, like you're warm, you're fed, you're rested, and now you've got income coming in. You can go to the doctor if you need to go to the doctor. Now that those basic needs are met, you can start to branch out and connect and look for belonging with family and friendships and a sense of community. This is really strong in childhood and can override the need for safety, especially in childhood. Children can aspire to this and want this so bad that they will trade off some of those lower level needs, like love, to get to this belonging and intimacy. Of course they do. They're kids. That's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to trust the people that are raising them. So what is the federal government doing to help us feel love and belonging and support families and that sort of thing. The National Park Service offers free entry to national parks on specific days. So check locally. I mentioned this yesterday. It's super awesome. In California, you can actually check a state park pass out of the library. So if you want to do something fun with your family, get them outside. Go to a national park. And by the way, I will encourage you to go once during each season. If you really want to have fun with your little kids, even we did it once a month. And we made sure we took pictures and we made sure we had like a discovery thing. So we were checking what was changing as the seasons, as you see things come up through the ground, you see the bugs start to come out, and you see the animals mating and babies. And then that's a great way to show your kids how nature works, and use your national parks for pulling together your family once a month out and take those pictures too. Take the pictures, are super fun. It can help first-time home buyers, because by this level, you should start to be thinking about buying your home. If you've got things under control in the first two levels, typically home buying happens at this love and belonging stage. Probably is when I bought mine, because I knew I was going to try to have a kid. So when I finally figured out I need to get a house, luckily, wing and a prayer, I'm a high-risk house buyer. So yes, got the house. The Federal Housing Administration offers loans and grants to help first-time home buyers. And this is probably one of the most exciting things I heard Kamala talk about, which was a home buyer's credit, because honest to God, that down payment, that's the death of you. Once you make that down payment, if you're like most of us, like me, you're cash depleted. And all of a sudden you have a house and you have to fix things and you have no cash. And I remember that first year I thought, I'm going to die. There's no way I can afford this. And then I don't know what happens. Like somehow things just kind of settle down. And yeah, you don't make all the repairs at first because that's just crazy, but things settle down and you can cope, and it's worth it having your double wide on a foundation. That's my house. So you also can have education at this level, because you have the Department of Education providing funding to public schools, and we spend on average $13,000 per public school student. That's interesting. I don't think the teachers feel like they're getting paid enough for spending $13,000 per public school student. We probably need to increase that, but that's actually Kamala's plan. And then we support child welfare programs, like as part of HHS, we have children's safety through foster programs and child protective services. Not everyone was meant to be a parent, something we don't talk about enough on this abortion law. There are so many people that probably shouldn't be parents. There's a lot of people who know they don't want to be parents. And I don't think there's enough people that want to adopt these poor children. I simply don't. And I've told you my hypothesis on children of color. If children of color end up in the system, I'm very, very worried the white evangelicals are going to use them and traffic them. But that's just me saying stuff out of my booty. So I want you to be clear. I have no proof of that. Only past behavior predicts future behavior. The government promotes civic engagement through local elections, which is a really important part of belonging and a sense of community. And we enable family health care through Medicaid. So Medicaid's there. It's not Medicare. That's for us old folks. I'm not eligible yet, not that old. But Medicare is for seniors. But Medicaid is the rescue program that's there for people who need prenatal, pediatric care, women's health, all those things, that they don't have access to income. So we do have that. And finally, at this belonging and helping heal people, we have the support for veterans' families. And that is through the VA, and that is healthcare, education, and housing assistance. So that's pretty darn good at the love and belonging. Now we're going to talk about self-esteem. All right. So I get excited about self-esteem because this is really where your self-respect kicks in, and you want status, but it's not necessarily a driver, but it kind of is, because that's a very American thing to have a bit of status. And the status could be relative to what you regard as status. So I'm not saying that you're trying to buy the bigger car on the block, or you're trying to have the best house, or whatever those things. Some people have very extroverted status. Some people have very introverted status. Some of us women have status and we don't talk about it, because I don't know why. It's not shameful, but it's weird to say what we've achieved as women. I find it's weird. Let me just say it that way. I find it weird to say what I've achieved as a woman. I don't know why. It's weird. I guess mostly probably because my status doesn't match my training. I mean, I have a friend who always said, like, Jen, you would have been so much more had you stopped and not had a kid. And it's true that is, I made some choices there that were very important to me that did limit my ability. Because if I had a kid as a single mom, and I did, I'm a single mom by choice, wasn't married, decided to have a kid. I knew I was going to be making sacrifices. I knew I bought a double wide on a foundation on purpose. I didn't want to spend all my money on heating a house and maintaining a house. I didn't want to overbuy. I wanted to make sure that I could have money so Katie could travel, which she did. I was really important to me that my kid was a global citizen. So self-esteem, how you choose to have the self-respect, the status, the recognition is totally up to you. But that's where it starts, right here at level 4. And it comes from self-confidence, confidence. It comes from your respect for others, and it comes from achieving your personal goals. So you're starting to have agency. You feel good in the world. And what you really have here is how the government helps you pursue this ideal of dignity, independence, reputation, status, prestige. Well, the federal government will help you with that. I can't believe it, but they will provide grants for higher education with the Pell Grants. Over $27 billion in aid every year, 6.9 million students. We have the government helping make sure wages are set fairly and that there are workers' rights. And we are having a lot of talks. Well, there's 2 conversations to have. One is about minimum wage that has not increased in decades. Federal minimum wage. Now, you've heard about states like California raised the minimum wage. Some other states have taken this lead. I think it's a great idea, but the federal minimum wage, which is used by a lot of people, is still at, wait for it, $7.25. It has not increased at all. That absolutely needs to be looked at. But the fact that we have that minimum tells you the government's working. The government also has worker protections and labor laws and all those things. And this is it, they dovetail with regulation. They dovetail with if you are interested in unions or not. I personally think unions are not a bad idea because workers really don't have a voice. We see that over and over and over again, where corporations, CEOs who make millions and millions of dollars aren't willing to push that money back down into the companies and reward their workers. So that's something that it's a value of mine. Hopefully, I know it's a value of Kamala's, and it was definitely a value of Joe Biden's. You choose where you want to be on that. You don't want to work in a union. I had my friend ask me, do you want to work in a union in Silicon Valley? And my answer is hell yes, I do. Hell yes, I do. Because I have been screwed so many times. So yes, I would love to work for a union. We recognize veterans through education and housing. So now you're a veteran and you're back and you're doing okay. We've got you out of crisis, right? You're doing all right. Guess what? We can give you education benefits and housing loans and help you transition to civilian life. That is part of how we do this self-esteem part of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And then the government promotes environmental stewardship, meaning that we look for renewable energy and encourage environmental responsibility. And one way they do that that gets consumers, American citizens like us involved, is something like the solar investment tax credit. So they provide an incentive. The government provides an incentive to us, really accessible because we're in this self-esteem area, right? So we know we don't have to worry about a lot of the little stressful things. We're working about the big stressful things, which is of course relative to your level of consequence. So maybe they're all big. The point is that you have I'm sorry, you have a solar tax credit. It's an investment in us that invests in green technology that helps all of us. So we have cleaner air, we have regulations already in place to protect us if we get the solar thing, and then you get money back for installing solar. Brilliant. Good way to use the government, in my opinion. We have protections from consumers from fraud, which the Federal Trade Commission is working on. And that's everything from those are fraudulent practices, things that will lure you in crypto that are bad for you. So we have the Federal Trade Commission working on those kinds. They have returned, this is a fun fact, over $480 million to consumers who were scammed by fraud. So that's pretty good. That's a nice civil grab back of money that we've lost. And then we have fair access to telecommunications, and that's the Federal Communications Commission. And the reason this is important to us is it means that they're making sure that the people who have the airwaves, not cable, the airwaves, are using them responsibly. I've got to look into more what they're doing, what the FCC is doing with cable. It's absolutely worth looking into. And then, of course, our government supports disaster relief efforts. And that's things through FEMA. So hurricanes, wildfires, post-earthquake, floods, we're going to have tsunamis, we're going to have tornadoes, all of those things, that's FEMA. And probably anyone who's ever been through a disaster has a special place in their heart for FEMA because they come through. Do they always? I don't know. Everything I've heard from FEMA is they come through. I know we have Katrina that was back during the Bush days. I don't know what happened there. I really don't. That was just a mess. And then, of course, we have our last level, which is self-actualization. And that's kind of the holy grail of, well, in Maslow's model, self-actualization meant achieving one's full potential, pursuing personal growth, and engaging in creative, intellectual, or altruistic endeavors. As you can imagine, self-actualization comes at the point at which your shit's figured out. Like you got your stuff under control. It's probably better named your 50s. I mean, it's just where things have started to settle down and you're constantly not in crisis. So you can do things like think about things from a principled standpoint, or you can have the time to create art or write, or you can just be much more available as a human because you're not afraid. The one thing fear does is it shuts us out to new experiences. It shuts down our willingness to take a risk. It shuts down our ability to listen. So someone that's dealing with self-actualization is no longer afraid. That is probably the most basic and simple thing I could share with you. And it means it's your opportunity now to take some risks, to try some things, to venture outside of your mental silo and get out there and look at the world in a bigger, broader way. And it really should mean that ideas come to you without judgment. It's almost like if you meditate, when you meditate, the thoughts come through your head and the deal is to just let them go. The thoughts come through and you can let them go. And the skill in meditating is realizing you're having the thought and then you got to let it go. Because if you're like me, those thoughts are in there digging and digging and digging around and they're really hard to get out. So self-actualization is like walking around in that meditative state where you can see something and not judge it and go, oh, that's interesting. I need to know more about that. That's interesting. It's not bothering me because I'm fine. I'm contained. I'm in my own person. My world is only ruffled when I choose to let it be ruffled. Otherwise, I'm fine. That's the idea of self-actualization. No longer having to be afraid. So what does this mean? What does the government do for us when we're way up there? Which is pretty cool. I did not expect this to be what I could find, but there is national infrastructure funding for the Department of Transportation and Highways, which means we can always hit the road. I love it. I love that that's like road trip. Road trip is one of the things the federal government provides for us, the ability to go on a road trip because the roads work. If you have a wild idea or you want to hang out with cool people, we have public libraries. The Institute of Museum and Library Services supports public libraries, providing grants to expand programs. And they have awarded over $200 million in grants, including educational resources. Hot doggy. If you haven't been to the library lately, what are you even doing? My library has a seed card catalog. So if you're born in the 1900s, sounds so weird. We had card catalogs. And the thing is, the card catalogs, you just got to Google it and find the drawers. Card catalogs were like the coolest drawers, these little drawers, because index cards went in there to find our books, right? You just go through the card catalog and find your book. But my libraries replaced the card catalogs with seeds. So you can go in and leave your seeds, because whoever needs a whole box of seeds or a bag of seeds, and then you can get some seeds from the other people. And I take down all my sweet peas because I grow so many sweet peas. I have seed pods up the yin yang. So I turn those in. Here's some seeds. My tomato seeds too. Oh, all my tomato seeds have done really well. So there you go. That's one of the things they do. The federal government supports local libraries. The federal government also secures veterans' disability benefits. So if you were injured or ill in the military service, you're handled. You can go and you can be taken care of and get what you need. Now, I said that like that sentence is true. I know it's way more complicated than that. I do. Our whole healthcare system is more complicated than that. My point is, though, the intention is there, and we need a leader. And this is, one of the reasons I support Kamala Harris and Tim Walz is they're paying attention to this stuff. They're already talking about this stuff. That's what's blowing my mind. I'm excited because they've already done what I'm doing retroactively. They've looked at it and said, this is inadequate. So I'm pretty excited about that. There's four more ways that the government will help you if you're at the self-actualized level. You can go get a student loan and go back to school. So we've talked about that, but we want to get you can go out there and you can go, it's accessible for middle-class families. If you've wanted to go back to school, one of two things. Number one, your community colleges are not very expensive. Totally worth it. I take a community college class probably at least once a year. For sure, I take an extension class, which are the kind of after hours, nighttime stuff. I took one on photographic light painting. So you go out at night and you set your camera up on RAW so you can get the photos, but then you paint with light based on your exposure. That was an extension class. So cool. And I may never be able to execute the way the experts did, but I know the technique now. And it was just, and the people I was hanging out with, like we're walking all around town. Our field trip was out late at night under the railroad tracks in Capitola Village. If you ever Googled Capitola Village, there's this amazing train track that comes through with really old, wood things that have a name that I don't know what they're called. But anyway, the structure of the train track's really cool. And you can paint it with light and then your photographs look really cool. So there you go. Go back to school. We have nutrition programs for women and infants. So we have WIC, women and infants, women, infants, and children. And WIC is really great if you are forced to have a baby in a state that has forced pregnancy. And when you get done with having your forced pregnancy, if you don't have enough money to pay for your baby, there is a WIC program that will help you with your baby. And that whole sentence just makes me sick. You should never be forced to have a child that you're not ready to have. But I digress. They also enforce fair housing laws. And one of the ways to be self-actualized is to be able to live where you want. And so, having someone that makes sure we have fair housing, unlike Trump, who was racially profiling his tenants and would not rent to Black people because whatever, the racist AF. Yeah, we have fair housing laws, and he was convicted on that front for his KKK background coming through and him absolutely not renting to people of color. And then the last way that I found was it supports energy efficiency programs. And the reason this helps with our self-actualization is that if we don't keep this planet going, we're going to be in a world of hurt. You can be as self-actualized as you want, and Rome will be burning around you. So I don't want that to happen. I don't want that to happen to any of us. So life without these services at every level would change the American experience. And as you know, Project 2025 is all about cutting these agencies. So yesterday, if you don't know the agencies, listen to yesterday's content. It was all about the 15 agencies of our government. It's really important to know, and I talk about what they spend. And the reason I want you to know that is I want you to then compare it to what Kamala is going to focus on as she comes in and where she's putting her energy. I think she's putting it in the right places, especially like the balance on national defense, military versus cyber, upping education. We need to really up education tremendously. We need to secure Social Security, and we need to tax the million billionaires. We need to tax them. They need to pay their fair share, including the corporations. That's a high priority for Kamala, and it should be. We need to pull all that together so that we can start getting the money back into the things that make the big difference and will help us all be able to do this Maslow's hierarchy of needs and to do this kind of self-actualization. It's interesting for you to sit back and think about where you are. And by the way, this isn't like you don't just go up a chunk. You'll go back and forth and move among the levels as you live. Like yesterday, I was pretty much ready to just throw everything out. I was right down at number one. My physiological needs, I had a migraine. That migraine's been hanging around for a few days now. I am like done. So I'm trying to work on my health and figure this out and maybe go get something decent to eat. But the point is, actually, maybe I will go get something decent to eat. The point is, you want to be able to do this. You want to figure out where you are, and you want to know that your government helps you enjoy a better life. So I have posted on Twitter today, if you're not on Twitter, sorry, 10 questions about who is providing what to you and what will happen to them if Project 2025 goes away? It's questions like you can answer in a poll. I just thought it'd be fun to try it that way instead of just put it out as a piece of paper. Why not just go ahead and run it as a poll on Twitter? So that's on there. If you go find Jen Carroll, or I think it's Jen Carroll, if you find me, you can take that poll. Maybe I'll put a link to it here in this blog so you can go find it if you want to take it. And I thank you for listening today. I hope that you understand what our government does for us and how different it is from a business. If you ever have someone comparing the government to a business, you need to stop them right there. The missions are entirely different. And that is where you want to start that discussion, which is the mission for a government is different than a mission for a business. And the fact that we brought in a business guy who isn't a business guy, but we brought in a guy that everybody thought was in business because of the show The Apprentice, where he got positioned as somebody who doesn't know anything, but he was positioned as somebody who does. You need to understand that business is not what government is. So I'm just gonna keep hitting that messaging point because I think so many uneducated voters think that that's true, and it's not. Very different missions. All right. I have a surprise tomorrow. I have a guest. I was able to talk to a man who is a pollster, and thank you, Grace, for that connection. He's terrific, and I'm going to have that for you tomorrow, and he is happy to engage on Twitter as well with your questions after you see tomorrow's pod. So I look forward to that. It will be video and audio, same however you consume it, but I did get him on video for the interview. And always now, I think going forward, I'll have a video and audio so you can choose to consume this how you want. But I'm going to get a haircut on Wednesday, so the videos are going to get better. They have to, just by default. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. Make sure you subscribe and rate, and I'll be back with another episode really soon.